behind me, you can probably see part of South Mountain. That's part of the Appalachian Range, and there's going to be intense fighting here on September 14th. Why is there fighting here? Well, because an order got lost and some other guys found it, and it resulted in really what we know as this campaign. This is sort of just like South Mountain, Harpers Ferry, Antietam, and Shepherdstown. And what do you know? We'll be covering all of those places. Maybe look for our Harpers Ferry video that we posted on Monday, and we have plenty of other things on our site as well. And also look for our other coverage that'll happen after the 17th. We've got a gaggle of guests with us today, and so far already, we're joined by Chris White behind the camera. We got Connor Townsend, our social media manager, and Shannon, our intern, coming out with us today. But we have two guests, and I'm going to bring on the first one right now. You know him already. He's already been on this week. This is Dennis Frye, formerly chief historian at the Harpers Ferry National Park, as well as longtime member and sometimes president of the Save Historic Antietam Foundation, author of numerous books. Come on, Dennis, set us up.
Hey, Gary. Also, for all of you out there, I had the great privilege of being one of the co-founders of the American Battlefield Trust 33 years ago, and also served as president of the organization. So I want to thank you. Thank you for all the support. We had dreams. There were 7 of us as co-founders. We had dreams. You've helped make those dreams come true, saving all these battlefields all over the country. So thank you. One of them that you've helped save a lot of land out back here on this mountain is South Mountain. Gary mentioned Special Orders 191. Nowhere, when you read Special Orders 191, nowhere do you see the words South Mountain. It's really important to understand that Robert E. Lee never expected to fight a battle here. He expected no contest here. The mountain, in fact, was going to be his friend, not his enemy. It was his ally. The mountain is a barrier between him and the Union Army. It's a barrier between him and George McClellan. It's a barrier, it's a buffer for General Lee between him and the enemy army. Because you see, General Lee's going this way, and I'm pointing north right now, pointing north. We're going to Pennsylvania. Special Orders 191 was just simply to get rid of the threat to his rear at Harpers Ferry. But as you know, the orders get lost, they get found. McClellan is moving aggressively. That's almost like an oxymoron, George McClellan and aggressive in the same breath. But he is, and Lee is befuddled. He's bewildered. What is McClellan doing? This is so atypical of George McClellan. And so Lee responds. Lee is actually at Hagerstown. Lee's about 5 miles from the Mason-Dixon line. He's already sent troops to the Mason-Dixon line. But he receives word from his cavalry. They're coming, General. They're coming way too fast. McClellan is being aggressive. He's moving. And so Lee turns around the army. He's waiting still for Jackson at Harpers Ferry. They're behind schedule at Harpers Ferry. Miles is holding. We talked about this the other day in the video. And Lee has to come bring his army back to the mountain because it's still divided. It's been divided now into 5 parts, and he needs to save his army. So South Mountain, think of South Mountain as an act of desperation by Robert E. Lee. It is an act of defense. His army is split, spread, and he needs to buy time. That's what South Mountain is all about, and that's exactly why we're here today to fight the Battle of South Mountain. Gary.
Good, Dennis. This is great. I'm glad to see so many of you on already. And while we have people from Indiana, Ohio, Texas, Pennsylvania, and otherwise, God, the person in California, man, my respect for that. It's only about 9:45 here. You are up early, and we appreciate the dedication, to our cause. It's good to see so many of you. I hope you're sharing with your friends. And here, I'm happy to announce, I teased it the other day a little bit, that we have Ancestry. Our good friends at Ancestry are willing to give away 2 one-year subscriptions to Ancestry. Those cost $300. We'll give away 2 of those during these lives, maybe one today and one tomorrow, and also a couple of bonus ones to Fold 3. And the way to win those is to participate in my manipulative quiz, and that is to get you to learn more about American history. So hopefully some of you know a lot of these famous quotes of the Civil War. The other day I mentioned the words, if practicable. That's a famous quote from Gettysburg. You would know that Lee said that to one of his commanders about taking heights south of Gettysburg. So I have 2 words in succession from a famous quote that you have to tell us who said it and the circumstance from it. We'll award some of these from the winning entries, and if you say something special enough, you might just win right on the spot. For instance, if I were to say, country say, maybe you would say, oh my God, I remember who said that. What will the country say? Abraham Lincoln after another disaster. And I think that's after the Battle of Fredericksburg. If I were to say, there stands, I'll bet you know what that one is. Hit me with an answer on that one. Oh, it's a little bit too easy. We got Chris White shaking his head because I hit you with one that was way too easy. How about this one? Will water. Who said those two words in a well-known quote associated with something Civil War? Put your answers on there, and maybe you'll win something from Ancestry. And by the way, thanks to all of our friends and partners who are watching and participating today. We have a whole bunch more guests joining us later today and tomorrow as well. But with no further ado, now that Dennis has set up the fighting, or how the troops are coming here, let's bring on our good friend Tom Clemens. You've seen him on our lives before. Save Historic Antietam Foundation. I don't know of a better Antietam expert in terms of writing about the Carmen Papers and otherwise, and a good friend to preservation. Come on, Tom.
Thanks, Gary. Happy to be here and always happy to help save battlefield land wherever and however we can do it. The Maryland campaign, in my view, the pivotal campaign of perhaps the entire Civil War, rests a lot on this chain of mountains behind us. This is essentially South Mountain, running from the Potomac River well up into Pennsylvania. And if you're going to move an army, getting across South Mountain is a challenge. There are only a few road gaps where the mountain dips down enough to make it practicable, there's Gary's word for you, practicable, to get across it with horse-drawn vehicles pulling wagons, cannons, with thousands and thousands of marching men. And so the challenge for Lee, with McClellan moving, and this is Lee's words, more rapidly than convenient, to describe McClellan's actions, Lee realizes that the key to the security of his army, the security of the Harper's Ferry operation, is to block those road gaps. He's got to put troops where troops can cross the mountain. Now, the question for Lee, of course, what troops and from where and how am I going to get them there? Some of them are going to be part of McLaws's operation at Harper's Ferry, and they're going to come up and block this gap behind me here, Crampton's Gap, and another smaller gap a mile south called Brownsville Pass. And he's going to put Confederate troops in those gaps, charge them with, don't let anybody through. Whatever happens, hold the gap. About 5 miles north of us is going to be Fox's Gap, where the old road crossed west from Frederick to the frontier at that time. And that is another gap that has to be held. A mile north of Fox's, Turner's Gap. These two together are going to be the cornerstone of the Confederate defenses. And General D.H. Hill's division in Boonesboro is going to be sent to block those two gaps and try to hold back the Union troops. Turner's Gap particularly important because that's the national road, the first federally authorized highway in the United States, going from Baltimore through Frederick west to the frontier and ultimately the Ohio River. The national road, think of it as a 19th century interstate. It is a macadamized hard surface road, wagons, horses in any number, in any weather. That's the key road. It's got to be blocked. Turner's Gap. Everything's going to turn at Turner's Gap. And of course, just a little ways north of that, another smaller and lesser used gap that's going to be critical in the fighting, and we'll talk about this when we get there this afternoon. This is the Frosttown Gap, and Frosttown Gap is going to prove to be the key to flanking Turner's Gap. So we're going to see a number of gaps today. There's going to be fighting at all of them. The key term for Lee is we've got to hold these gaps.
Excellent, Tom. Thank you so much. And it's so good to see so many of our good friends on here. Shannon McLucas, Amber Lass, and an extremely biased Dr. Mary Abro of our board who, really agrees with Tom that this is the pivotal campaign of the entire war. And it's good to see so many of you. A lot of you already jumped on the Stonewall Jackson quote. There stands Jackson like a stone wall. I think it was Barry who actually said, that Bernard B. said it. That's going to earn you extra points if you get who the speaker is. I haven't seen anybody yet try to get Will Water. What quote is that part of? Who said it? And what were the circumstances? So the harder the quote, the more likely. Oh, Tom knows that one. Don't give it away. And let me just say that it's good to all have you here. You are with the American Battlefield Trust. We're in Burkittsville, Maryland, most famous not for the Civil War, but actually for the Blair Witch movie or movies that are supposedly set here, and it gained a little fame here for a while. And by the way, in the first Blair Witch movie, the ending scene of that is just about as good as horror films sort of get. You might be able to hear some of these bells in the background. There are a couple of churches here, both of which served as hospitals. There's a German Reformed church, and there is a St. Paul's Lutheran church right next to one another. They had hospitals set up by letters, and there's a great Civil War trail sign out in front of one of them. I'm not sure if either of you guys want to talk about the hospital situation here. Neither of them are coming up right here, so I think we're going to start to wrap things up here. So just in summary, we're going to be checking out some of these gaps here, okay? In the wake of Special Orders 191 and McClellan moving this way, westward toward the gaps, you've got D.H. Hill and a few others in a perilous situation, okay? Will Harper's Ferry siege be lifted if the Union captures and moves through Crampton's Gap? Can they destroy Lee's army in detail with something Lee knew could happen? Can they hold these gaps long enough for more reinforcements to come and for more of the Confederate Army to come from Harper's Ferry and elsewhere and really concentrate in a place where they could fight the enemy away from their Washington defenses like they always wanted to? So we're going to be visiting these places. We'll go live if we can. If not, we'll shoot it and then post it later. Crampton's Gap next, hopefully Fox's Gap after that, and then we'll see. We will be at Antietam today, setting up the 16th, and look forward to that because nobody knows about some of this stuff, or hardly anyone knows about it. So for now, thanks to Chris, Connor, and Shannon, working things behind the camera and responding to your social media. It's so good to see so many of you up this early already. Thanks to Dennis, thanks to Tom, and thank you for watching and for supporting Battlefield Preservation. Oh, and we've saved no, too late. We've saved 700 acres, us together, at South Mountain, and that is the most that we've saved at any Maryland campaign site. Thanks.